What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Warriors Report. It's time to talk about the Toronto Raptors and in particular Fred Vanvleet because we got some news regarding his player option from Jake Weinbach of all people. It was being reported that Fred Vanvleet is expected to decline his $22.8 million player option and leave the Toronto Raptors in free agency this offseason. Chicago, the Magic, the New Orleans Pelicans, Houston Rockets, and the Lakers all make sense as teams that could pursue Vanvleet. Now, I'm going to be talking about which potential sign and trade deals the Raptors could do, certain players on these certain teams. I'm also going to be talking about the Raptors if Fred VanVleet were to leave as well. So if you're ready to watch this video, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, guys. I'm probably going to get about 3 hours of sleep. I got to wake up for work in about 3 hours. So I want to get this video out to you guys. So show your support by hitting the subscribe button. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. Now, as you know, I do like to give out shout outs on my channel, and the shout out for today's video goes out to Robert West. So Robert, thank you so much for supporting this channel through your likes and comments. It is very much appreciated. Now let's start this video talking about the free agency pool for the point guard position. Now I know a lot of people aren't big Fred VanVleet fans, and that's completely fine. You're allowed to have your own opinion on certain guys, but if you take a look at the free agency pool, I know a lot of people feel like we could just replace Fred. It isn't all that great outside of the top 5, top 6. By the way, Pat Bev does not belong in the top 4, top 5, top 6. Let's be honest. But outside of the top 5, 6 guys, there's a huge drop off. There isn't really a great point guard out there. Sure, you could maybe make a case for Ayo Dosunmu, Reggie Jackson, maybe even Kobe White. But you see how poor the free agency class is for point guard position. So the Raptors losing Fred VanVleet could have a big impact. And look, I just don't see any of these guys, if I'm being completely honest, coming to the Raptors. So it's going to be very difficult if the Raptors do lose him for nothing. However, there are several teams that do not have salary cap, and I'm going to be taking a look at potential teams and certain guys the Raptors could acquire in a sign and trade deal. Now let's start off with the Chicago Bulls. Fred VanVleet is from Illinois as well, so it makes sense we start off with this team. And obviously the whole Lonzo Ball situation in Chicago has been very messy. We don't know if he's going to play basketball again. It seems like the Bulls want to run it back, and also they do desperately need a point guard. Now, one thing I want to quickly mention before we get to the Chicago Bulls is I know a lot of Raptors fans feel like you could just let Fred go. Look, we just went 2 or 3 seasons without a legitimate center. Now you all of a sudden want to run a team without a legitimate point guard list. There's a lot of questions about Fred, but ask a team like the Bulls what it is to run an offense without a point guard. So obviously, taking a look at certain guys here, I know people will be quick to mention someone like Alonzo Ball in a sign and trade. I don't think the Raptors do that. That's a huge risk they're taking with dead salary at the moment, especially if he doesn't play. But talking about Fred, realistically speaking, he's probably going to start off his first year with around $25, $26 million. Now, to come close to that, it's going to be very challenging at a team like the Chicago Bulls that don't have a lot of guys outside of their top 2, 3 guys making more than $20 million. Now, realistically speaking, if the Raptors were to do a sign and trade with the Chicago Bulls in any situation, one of Patrick Williams or Alex Caruso would have to be a part of that. The others simply do not make enough money. And look, obviously, they're not giving up Patrick Williams for Fred VanVleet. So realistically, they would have to be Alex Caruso. Now, outside of that, there is a huge drop off in salary, which doesn't even come close to making $25 million. I know people will be quick to point at someone like Ayo Dosunmu as a sign and trade candidate along with Alex Caruso to the Raptors. I just don't see it, guys. I don't see the Bulls giving up someone like Alex Caruso who they value so highly. So I'm taking a look at someone like a Kobe White. $10 million contract to start the season. Next season in a sign and trade, then you include Alex Caruso. That's about $19 million. Probably have to still include $1 million or so. But again, those are probably the 2 players I'm realistically looking at in terms of a sign and trade acquisition. And even then, it's not easy to do sign and trades. People need to realize Kobe White isn't a great defensive player. Yes, he has shot the 3 really well, and he's 6'5", so you can make the argument you get a tall point guard. But I don't know. There's huge question marks around Kobe White as well. So it may not be the greatest acquisition. You're kind of just acquiring Kobe White as a salary filler. And that's not a shot at Kobe White. I think he's a good offensive player, but there are a lot of questions around his defense. But let's take a look at team number 2 here. Now, personally, if you ask me, I don't know why the Pelicans are being linked to the Fred VanVleet sweepstakes. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them. I know they have CJ McCollum, and unless they want to do a CJ for a Fred VanVleet swap, I'd be perfectly content with that. But you could even make the argument that he's going to be making a lot of money for the next 3 seasons as well. But in terms of obviously guys aside from Zion, Jonas Valanciunas, and Brandon Ingram, it becomes a little bit challenging. Same thing, same situation as we dealt with the Bulls. You're making about $25 million in return. In a sign-in trade, and someone like a Larry Nance Jr. would have to be included. Larry Nance, again, power forward, center. So you get a question where the Raptors will fit him. The Raptors have a lot of power forwards in Scotty Pascal, Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa, and obviously off the bench, they got someone like a Christian Koloko. But honestly, I wouldn't be mad at something like a Larry Nance Jr. I know he's a short center, but it could give time to Christian Koloko to fully develop as well. It gives him a backup veteran in Larry Nance. That's, he seems like a really good role player. I like him. But in terms of what other pieces the Raptors could potentially acquire, this is where it gets tricky. I think you absolutely have to include someone like a Garrett Temple for that $5.4 million contract. That's still only about $16 million, close to $16 million anyways. You still need to add a few more salaries. So it becomes very challenging. As you note here, like, you're not obviously going to include Dyson Daniels. There's no way we're getting Dyson Daniels for Fred VanVleet, let alone those other two guys as well. So they're not giving up Trey Murphy. They're definitely not giving up Herb Jones as well. So I'm looking at someone like Akira Lewis Jr. Again, it's hard, man. It's not easy to do these deals, and it becomes very challenging when you talk about sign-in trades and having that many guys come back in a 3-for-1. Don't get me wrong, that would be a pretty nice trade in Larry Nance, a good role player. Garrett Temple, look, it is what it is. Salary filler. Kira Lewis Jr. hasn't panned out with the Pelicans for whatever reason. I don't think he's getting enough minutes there. He's a good offensive player, so I wouldn't mind him on the Raptors. But it's like, the more you look at some of these rosters, the more challenging it gets in terms of sign-in trades as well. So the more I think about it, the more I think the likelihood that Fred walks for nothing is realistic. Like, obviously, I'm not going to include the Magic and the Rockets in there because they can outright sign him. So there's no sign and trade deals there. But let's talk about our last team on our list here, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. What happens if the Raptors do let Fred go for nothing. Now, I think this is probably the most realistic trade partners for the Toronto Raptors. The LA Lakers, they clearly could benefit from having a point guard like Fred VanVleet, who can shoot a lot of threes, who's a good catch and shoot three-point shooter despite having a struggling season. Now, the name we constantly keep hearing is D'Angelo Russell. We're going to obviously ignore that just for the time being because I've already made a video about that. But in terms of some of the other guys, you obviously have to include someone like a Mo Bamba in this situation. Now, you would have to do a sign-in trade with some of their other free agents as well, particularly maybe Rui Hachimura. I don't see them giving up Austin Reeves, personally speaking, for someone like a Fred VanVleet. And then you got Dennis Schroeder as well. So we got Mo Bamba's $10.3 million. We need to include about another $14 million. Obviously, Rui Hachimura is probably going to be getting paid something along the lines of that. The only thing I will say is similar to what we had about, questions with the Pelicans in terms of backup power forward is, where is Rui Hachimura going to get the minutes from? He's a power forward. The Raptors have Chris Boucher off the bench. They need to develop Precious Achiuwa as well. So how does and where does Rui Hachimura fit in with the Raptors? Not to say I wouldn't be happy with that acquisition. Don't get me wrong. He would be an excellent choice for the Raptors in terms of sign and trade options. I just don't know if that's going to be the best fit, right? So it's hard to do Rui Hachimura. I do realistically could see someone like a Dennis Schroeder, $12 million, $13 million a season for a couple seasons, sign and trade him. The Raptors did want him last offseason. He did choose the LA Lakers over the Toronto Raptors. So take that as you will. Mo Bamba is tough because he's just gotten no minutes with an LA Lakers team that really could have used the center as well. So what does that tell you about Mo Bamba? For whatever reason, he's not getting minutes. Maybe he's more hungry next season, given the fact that he is heading into free agency. So again, it's not easy to do sign and trades. That's all I'll say before we talk about Fred. Is it's really difficult. And even in terms of what players you get back, do the Raptors really want to add? I wouldn't want to say dead salary, but guy like, example, Mo Bamba, you're acquiring him just for the sake of acquiring him to make him a salary filler as well. So it becomes really challenging to do some of these deals. But let's talk about Fred VanVleet. Now, the thing I keep hearing a lot of Raptors fans say is, let him walk for nothing. We'll be completely fine. Look, man, you cannot run a team without a free agent. As I said earlier in this video, ask a team like the Chicago Bulls. They got three really talented offensive players, Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, yet they're struggling with a particular position they're in desperate need of. So regardless of how you may feel about Fred, I think for a team like the Raptors that literally went 3 seasons without a legitimate center, now you're going to go into next season without a point guard. And look, I'm well aware they could draft someone like a Cason Wallace. They could draft someone like a Kobe Buffkin at the 13th spot, where you're putting a lot of expectations on a rookie to come in and facilitate an offense. And for those who may say, well, we can have Scotty Barnes, we can have Pascal Siakam run at the point guard position, you can do that temporarily. But think of something like this. When you're running a pick and roll with Jakob Poeltl, teams are going to defend that very easily. They're going to give Pascal and Scotty jump shots all day, every day. So that pick and roll doesn't necessarily work. And also that's going to really hurt Jakob's game as well, offensively at least, because that's what he relies on, attacking the basket when you have a point guard that can shoot as well. And obviously, the Raptors do need three-point shooting as well. So this is going to be a difficult decision in terms of Fred Vanvleet as well. So I'm not saying Fred is the best point guard for the Raptors. Don't get me wrong. I think if I'm Fred Vanvleet, you absolutely have to do everything in your power to at least help the Raptors out, man. Like, this is a team that gave you an option when you went undrafted. Look, I know you were part of that championship team and you were a key contributor. You were a great role player on that team, but it's tough, man. You can't just walk away from nothing. You got to help the Raptors. If your goal is to leave the Raptors, do a sign and trade. Get the Raptors some sort of something back at least, because that's going to be terrible if he walks for nothing. Now the Raptors are losing him for nothing, and that puts more pressure to re-sign Gary Trent Jr., and that also gives Gary Trent Jr. a lot more leverage to ask for a higher payday, knowing that the Raptors need three-point shooting. So regardless of how you may feel about Fred, I think you need something back in a sign and trade. If not, bring him back. I think he's going to come back. I don't know if I believe these rumors completely. I'm not trying to take shots at Jake. I think people need to realize that there are other sources outside of Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania as well. So sometimes people know different people, and you just happen to get your hands on some sort of information. I don't know if I buy these rumors, but it's obviously very interesting to see what the Raptors will do. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and to stay in tune with the latest Raptors news. And, a lot of draft stuff as well. I'm going to be coming out with a mock draft as well. So I'm very excited for that. So make sure to hit the subscribe button and let's get into today's trivia question.
And the trivia question for today is, who was the fifth highest paid player on the Toronto Raptors this past season? Was it A, Gary Trent Jr.? Was it B, OG Anunoby? Was it C, Chris Boucher? Was it D, Jakob Poeltl? Or was it E, Thad Young? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video. Thank you so much once again for watching this video, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.